Just what were the differences then between what the media would be doing in a situation like this in terms of what would happen today?
Well, first of all, there were many more newspapers in existence. Newspapers were the primary medium for information. Radio was prevalent. Television in the 60s.
Infancy.
It was
news media. In 1960 was in its infancy, pretty much. Television news was.
That's right. And it was all film, no live shots, no tape. So it was pretty much a newspaper story.
Mm-hmm.
And as you recall, I mean, newspapers have these huge headlines, and they're trying to outdo each other. The morning trying to outdo the afternoon, and it's a circulation problem. So it was a creative writing course out of the lodge. Who could write the biggest headline? And they had to keep getting the new information. There wasn't any information, so a lot of it, I think, was contrived, or at least was not checked out.
Even though the Chicago papers, of course, they had all four of them had their people down here, but you also had to remember you had LaSalle, Peru, the Auto newspapers, Rockford. It was not, and then the Associated Press was here on a daily basis, and UPI. So it was being fed around the nation, not just an Illinois story. It was a national story because of the way it happened, the unusual part of it, and the fact it took so long before the thing was finally cleared.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it truthfully was probably one of the, I know there's been quite a few of these crime of the centuries, but it certainly was, at the time that it happened here in Illinois and nationally, an extraordinarily big story.
Because part of it was where it happened, in this park. That makes a lot of difference.
So just in terms of what we want to bring to the course, speak to me a little bit about what are we going to offer these lawyers? What's important for us?
I think number one is, I think it gives some idea to the attorneys what can happen in a so-called one of these major crime stories that gets so much play when your client is under so much scrutiny and so many stories are being written or aired about him that you have to take some things you're going to have to. It's a little different than handling the usual run-of-the-mill case. So you're going to have that, as this points out, which is an exception. It was a very big story. There's no question about that. But when the media runs amok, as it did then, you're going to have some problems maybe with your client. You've got to be able to curtail some of that stuff, or maybe expose it the other way so you get some favorable publicity. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things right there. Of course, you had a monkey by the tail to begin with where it happened, because it was such a major story to begin with. You're two strikes against you. And also the problem that the man is being held incommunicado for that long a time. That maybe he didn't. Remember, Tester Uyghur was not a well-educated man. They may have offered him an attorney, but I don't think maybe he realized the significance of what that would meant for him. That the attorney could come in there and say, "Hey, you don't say anything more to my client." I don't think he realized that. I don't know that as a fact, but I think most people would agree with me on that. I think that's another thing. People that are attorneys that have in high-profile cases, and they certainly have had. There's many that have done lots here. Would see there's a case in point where you've got to come and grab your guy right away and lawyer him up fast, or you're going to have problems, and they did.
Right. Absolutely. Joel, for you? That's a toughie because I just now have to re-ask the question.
About the media? Well, I agree with John. We've seen an evolution, and we've seen a good evolution, because we've seen an education of what we as reporters can do and should not do. And I think we've also helped to educate the prosecutors and the defense attorneys what they should do and not do, particularly the prosecution with respect to the statements they make, because the reporters are strictly sponges. They'll just absorb all of that and spew it out. So it's their obligation, and indeed it's a matter of professional responsibility that you don't try the case in the media.
And that's a problem as far as the media sometimes is concerned, because a news conference by a various state's attorney or U.S. attorney or police chief or whoever it is, somebody in law enforcement, they come back to the office, or the people look at it and say, geez, he didn't say a heck of a lot. In other words, he just say, alleged to do this and bang. That's
all they're allowed to
do. They're very careful what they say, so you don't have these flamboyant statements to be a headline. Guilty as hell or something like that. You can't do that anymore. In fact, some of those statements that you had these news conferences are you better get your Salmonics up. I mean, in other words, they're not the most exciting anymore, and there's a good reason for that. I think in most cases they're very, very careful that they're not going to have that thing thrown out because of something they said.